Welcome to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. We are two dads talking sports during nap times. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode. Welcome back to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. For episode 15, we'll be doing an NFL draft recap, going over the Vikings and Raiders picks, as well as going over the NFC North and AFC West as well. We will then go into two surprise picks during round one and after round one, and then go into our favorite day one, day two, and day three draft picks, and our top three favorite team drafts. We'll then finish up the show with a little Timberwolves talk. Enjoy the show. So, Zach, before we get started here, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Not really. I'm just, months and months of speculation, and we have the answers to all of our questions. The draft is officially over, and let's deep dive right into this thing.
Yeah, just before we get started, we had our mock draft challenge, and Zach was the winner this year. He joins the champions for his first time ever. So congrats, Zach, on the championship.
Thank you. Feels good. Like you said, it was the first one. And, when we were sitting there watching the draft together, I didn't think that I thought personally, I thought I was going to finish like third. So when you added it all up and I was actually first, it was kind of surprising. But yeah, man, it feels good. Feels real good. Hopefully I can keep it going into the years to come.
Yeah, we'll see if we all might have something to say about that, but we'll see.
No doubt.
All right. Well, yeah, let's just get rolling here. So maybe just start off with the Vikes first.
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so on draft night, the Vikes, they sat there and were patient. And then we got J.J. McCarthy at number 10. We moved up, didn't have to give up any future first-round picks to get him, which it was something that I was very excited about. Kind of talked about that in previous episodes, how just giving up future first for him was not something that really excited me, but the value that we gave, or what we gave up for him, was just incredible. I thought we only gave up a fifth round pick and move up one spot, and we got a 6th round pick back. So really nothing there to move up and just get your quarterback, hopefully of the future here. And JJ McCarthy comes in a perfect situation to sit there behind Sam Darnold, to learn from Darnold, to learn from Nick Mullins, who's a highly veteran quarterback in the NFL, to sit there and learn from KOC and Josh McCown as well is something I'm excited to see what he does. And I was just looking at this other day, Zach, maybe we can even touch base on this, but I saw the favorites for the offensive player of the year and defensive rookie of the year. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later, but I was kind of surprised with what they had on there. So
yeah, and actually I didn't look at those at all. So yeah, we definitely we'll bring that up later in the show, but yeah, I'm kind of curious to know who they have.
Yeah. Well, then at number 7, or at number Vikes were sitting there at number 23, but they traded up to 17 with the Jacksonville Jaguars and I was super, super excited when this happened. We're talking, oh gosh, are they coming up to get Dallas Turner? And sure thing, it was Dallas Turner. My favorite defensive prospect in this draft, and to get him at 17 was just incredible value. I see a lot of people on Twitter kind of saying we overpaid with the draft picks, but man, I just completely disagree, because you get a talent like Dallas Turner at 17, he's worth giving up a 3rd and 4th round, in my opinion, just because, his potential, what he could be, is a lot higher than I think a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Oh, dude, for sure. And I still can't believe that they got Dallas Turner. He was the 9th overall player on my board. He was the number 1 defensive player in this entire draft. And the fact that he was still there at 17, I mean, that was a no-brainer for the Vikings to move up and get him. And just going back to J.J. McCarthy real quick, dude, I was nervous for you guys. All those quarterbacks were going early, and then Penix went to number 8 to Atlanta. And then I'm thinking, like, dude, if the Vikings don't trade up and get J.J. McCarthy, I mean, they're going to end up with like a Bo Nix or a Spencer Rattler. So I was getting nervous for you guys. So it was smart that you guys moved up to 10 to make sure that you guys got J.J. McCarthy, because in my opinion, J.J. McCarthy is light years ahead of like Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler. So at least you guys, moved up a couple spots to make sure that you at least left, that first round with one of those top 5 quarterbacks. So it's awesome that you guys did that. But yeah, dude, getting Dallas Turner at 17, I mean, and it's a position of need too. You guys went out and signed Van Ginkel, but I think he's more of a rotational player for you guys. And then you went out and got Grenier too, and he'll probably be a starter. So having Grenier on one side, Dallas Turner on the other, with Van Ginkel coming in on probably 3rd down, rushing the quarterback. Man, I thought you guys left that first round super, super nice. And the main thing, like you said, is you didn't give up next year's first round pick. So overall, I mean, just talking about that first round, I would much rather have JJ McCarthy, a first round pick in 2025, and Dallas Turner over Drake May. So yeah, you guys had one hell of a first round.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. If you would have said that, hey, you guys will be leaving the draft with Dallas Turner as your second pick, I would say there's no way.
There's no
There's no
way.
way impossible
No way.
that he's going to be going that far down, and he did. So I was completely super excited about that. And yeah, I might have to get myself a Dallas Turner jersey. That's for sure.
Dude, if I was a Vikings fan, I definitely would. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for you guys. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he was the favorite there for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
We'll get on. We'll talk about those rankings a little bit later. Maybe we'll save that before the Wolves talk.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, we'll see what happens there. But moving on, we didn't have any picks on day 2. The Vikes did not trade back into the second or third round at all, so we just sat there and watched the day 2 drafts. The guys get drafted there in day 2. But in day 4, we had a pick in the top 10 there in the 4th round. It was actually picked number 108. And they took a guy that you really like a lot, and that's Kyrie Jackson, cornerback out of Oregon. So a big cornerback measuring at 6'4", 194 pounds, according to ESPN. He'll be 25 in August, so maybe that's why he'll slid a little bit. But, that doesn't really scare me at all with his age. He's a solid press corner. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Flores can do with him to see if he can help him develop more. But yeah, a big body cornerback there, and I was really excited about that pick.
Man, I was so jealous when you guys got him. I actually wanted the Raiders to take him there in the 3rd round. I was really hoping that we would pull the trigger on that. I'm a huge Kyrie Jackson fan. He was in my top 40. I think he was 38th overall. So my 38th overall player, you guys got him at what, 108? I mean, talk about value there. That's absolutely insane. Probably a day 1 starter for you guys. I think he's going to go to camp and really, really impress. 6'4", like you said, he's got a 6'7" wingspan. He only had that 1 year of college at Oregon, but when teams threw his way, he only allowed a QBR of 41.6, so an absolute dog. And we talked about him in a previous podcast too, where he's really good at surprising people and rushing the passer. He had 10 quarterback pressures and 2 sacks last year, so a player that I really, really like. I like his length. The age doesn't scare me one bit. He is going to be 25, like you said, when the season starts. But, who really cares? I thought the value was fantastic there, and another home run pick by the Vikings.
Yeah, for sure. And go back to the age thing, hey, we can still get, a solid 6-7 years out of him too if he turns into something. So that's those are many years to have a guy starting at cornerback. Average is probably not even that, I would have to guess. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I really like that pick. I really like that pick too. I wonder if that'll make Byron Murphy slide over to slot this next season if Jackson starts on the outside and probably Blackman starts on the other side. So really excited what they're doing there at the D-back room there. And we'll talk about UDFA that I'm really excited that they signed too here after I go through round or our draft picks first.
Oh, sweet. Nice. And another thing about Kyrie Jackson, he's a very willing tackler. He's a very good tackler. He's got those long arms to wrap you up. So, yeah, I fully anticipate him being a week 1 starter on the outside for the Vikings. So, man, big fan of that pick.
Well, moving on to the 6th round pick here. So we picked at 177 in the 6th round, and they drafted an offensive tackle to Oklahoma by the name of Walter Rouse. So he's 6'6", 313 pounds. I like this pick because I think he can provide solid depth to the O-line. He can definitely maybe develop into a swing tackle for us, especially when Darisaw misses games during the season. Also, O'Neal's injury history as well. It's nice to have a guy like this. So he played at Stanford before transferring to Oklahoma, and I guess he's a very, very smart kid. So I'm really excited about that too. He didn't give up 1 sack last year as a full-time starter at Oklahoma, and he started 52 games at left tackle in his career, so he definitely has the experience there at left tackle. And the team was just raving about how smart he is, like I was talking before. And this past season, he was had a very, very solid year. And then Charles Davis was talking about him on NFL Network, how he could be just a stud offensive tackle, and he really liked that pick for the Vikings at 177. He thought that was tremendous value there.
Yeah, I thought it was great value there too. Like you said, 6'6", 313 pounds, really nice size. But I think the biggest thing that you hit on was the 52 games started at left tackle. So he's got a ton of experience. And him playing at Oklahoma, he's playing against, very good opposing teams. So definitely a great pick. And like you said, with the injury concerns, it's smart to get a tackle like that. You never know what can happen. So definitely a nice depth piece there in the 6th round. So yeah, another pick that I thought was very good for the Vikes.
And then our next pick was at 203 in the 6th round. And I was really excited about this pick. This is a guy that I was drafting a lot in mocks as I was doing them myself, and that was Will Reichard, kicker out of Alabama. So, like I said, he was my favorite kicker coming in the draft, and I feel like we needed to do this. Go draft the kicker in the late rounds, create that kicker competition in training camp here, and then he could be a lock for a 53-man spot too. So I like getting that value there in the 6th round. You get your specialist there, and then he had an outstanding career at Alabama. He actually had the most career points of all time in NCAA football history at the kicker position, in any position in general, actually. So really excited about that pick. I think he can be, our starting kicker for the future going forward.
Yeah, and that's my prediction too. I think he's going to be your week 1 starting kicker. I mean, great value here too. He's one of the best kickers in college, in the history of college football. So it's definitely worth taking that risk. Inside the 40, he's damn near automatic, and he has the leg to hit those 50 plus field goals. So I think he's really going to impress as a rookie. And yeah, I think he's going to be a day 1 kicker for you guys.
Moving on to the 7th round, so they picked at 230 and they drafted Michael Juergens, center out of Wake Forest. So he also has experience playing guard too at Wake Forest, but he started in 34 career games in college and was a 3-year captain. And he was actually graded higher as a guard than he was a center. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about because, who is our left guard right now?
Yeah.
Is this a guy that could potentially maybe uh, shock people and jump in there and get that left guard spot? Probably not. I'm more expecting him to be a backup center, backup guard. We'll see what he can do. You just never know where these guys, just because he's drafted in the 7th round doesn't mean that he couldn't develop into something. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm excited to see what he can do for us and if he can make the team come out of training camp.
Yeah, and that was a position of need for you guys. You definitely needed to get a guy that can compete with those guards. He's probably not a week 1 starter like you said, but I do think that with you guys having Blake Brandel and Ed Ingram, I mean, who knows? Maybe he does go in training camp and surprise people, and maybe they plug him in. You never know, but it's just nice having that competition there at the guard position. So another solid pick, man.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to our last pick of the draft. Now is at 232, so just a few picks after when we took Juergens there. And they drafted Levi Drake Rodriguez, defensive tackle at Texas A&M Commerce. So this is an FCS school guy. Don't know much about Drake or Levi Drake Rodriguez myself, but from what I read about him, from what I heard from other analysts, he sounds like in his interview, sounds just like a really great kid, and you can tell he's super pumped to be a Viking. He was talking about how he gets up at 3:30 in the morning and works out every day. So he has this tremendous work ethic. He has a mentality, just wants to be just a great player and just great at his job. So a guy I'm excited to see what he can turn into and if he can turn into everything or anything. But he definitely, from what it sounded like, he definitely dominated at the FCS level, but definitely a project in the 7th round. And I just had to look this up. So I was curious to see where he was on Mel Kiper Jr.'s rankings for defensive tackle. And he was actually his number 23rd, number 23rd defensive tackle out of 47 that he had ranked. So
Okay.
a guy that was there on his list, and just excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, and I was hoping that you guys were going to leave, that draft with a nose tackle. So getting him, that late, definitely a nice little rotational piece because who knows what you guys really have in that defensive tackle room with Harrison Phillips and Jerry Tillery and guys like that. So yeah, I mean, just kind of at that point, that late in the draft, you're kind of just throwing a dart at the board and hoping for the best. And yeah, that's definitely a position in need, and I thought that was a good pick.
So overall, Zach, just your perspective, what did you think of the draft in general for the Vikings?
So I thought it was really good. They got their franchise quarterback. I'm not going to shy away from my opinion on him. I still thought he was yeah, still think he's a day two quarterback, but with the way I mean, Bo Nix went 12th overall, so these quarterbacks were going high. Obviously, JJ McCarthy wasn't going to fall past, much further past 10. So it's smart that they went up. They got their guy. JJ McCarthy's young. He's 21 years old, and from all the interviews I've seen, he seems like a good kid, and he seems like he's a dog, and he's got that winner's mentality.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that they were bold. They didn't. My biggest thing about the entire Vikings draft, they got some really nice pieces, but the main thing is they didn't do anything too crazy, and they didn't trade that 2025 first-round pick, because I really like next year's class, and I think that pick is going to be very valuable. So overall, JJ McCarthy, he went as high as he did. Even if the Vikings didn't take him, he was still going to be a top 12 pick more than likely. So I was happy with that. The Dallas Turner was a grand slam pick. There's no way I still can't believe that he went all the way down to 17. So right there, I think JJ McCarthy potentially be a day one starter, depending on how patient they are with him. Dallas Turner's a day one starter. I think Kyrie Jackson is a day one starter, and I think the kicker that you got is going to be a day one starter. So overall, I mean, I thought Kwesi did a one hell of a job, and if I were a Minnesota Vikings fan, I'd be very, very excited with how this draft played out.
Kwesi was cooking, that's for sure.
He really was cooking. And there was a lot of question marks about him going into this offseason and how he was going to, do with free agency in this draft, because this draft was one of the biggest drafts in Minnesota Vikings history. And I thought, he did one hell of a job. So, yeah, good job, Kwesi.
Yeah, so it was, he continued to cook too in the undrafted free agent market as well. So a couple guys that we got, I'm just going to touch on them real quick before we move on to the Raiders.
Sure, yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
So Gabriel Murphy is outside linebacker coming out of UCLA, 6'2", 247, was a number 135th overall prospect according to ESPN, and he was actually number 11 out of 34 on Mel Kiper's outside linebacker rankings. That includes Dallas Turner on that list too.
Nice.
He had 16 tackles for loss this past season. So just another one of those guys who was definitely draft worthy and for whatever reason just wasn't taken. So I'm really excited for him. He was actually, from what other people are saying, that he was the number one undrafted free agent here in this class. So, we got Pace Jr. last year and we get Murphy this year. So we'll see if he turns out to be anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, those undrafted free agents, dude, a lot of those guys make teams, and a lot of those guys become, impact players at the next level. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on those lists for sure.
For sure. And then the second guy I've written down here is Dwight McGlothern, cornerback out of Arkansas. So he's 6'2", nice size,
Yeah.
185, was the 34th rated cornerback out of 60 cornerbacks on Mel Kiper Jr.'s list. And he was actually rated number 167 overall on ESPN. So I was also super surprised he wasn't drafted. He's a guy that I also was mocking the Vikings in my mocks I was doing when I was doing Sims on my own.
Sure.
A lot of the times in like the 6th round or sometimes even the 5th round. But yeah, he had 7 interceptions and 23 passes defended over the past 2 seasons at Arkansas after transferring from LSU. And then back in 2022, he was an all-SEC player of the year too. So just an incredible value again in the free agent market here, and seeing what Flores can do with him when he gets his hands on him.
Yeah, and with your guys' cornerback room, I mean, if a guy goes there in training camp and the preseason and really balls out, he definitely has the potential to make that roster. There's no doubt about it.
For sure, for sure. So overall, the Vikes signed 17 undrafted free agents, so a huge class for them. I was really surprised when I saw that number. But I'm, just overall going into the offseason now, after the draft, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do at left guard, if they'll bring Dalton Reisner back now that the draft is concluded. Also, what are we going to be doing at the wide receiver 3 position? Do they anticipate Powell or someone else stepping up into that role? And also just a question mark at defensive tackle moving forward before training camp too. Like we talked about Harrison Phillips, talked about Jerry Tillery. I'd like for them to maybe add another guy there. I know they have Jacqueline Roy, who was a defensive tackle that we drafted a few years back too out of LSU. So maybe they think they have that lockdown now. But if there's a guy out there, I'm gonna have to go look to see who's out there in the free agent market. But some different positions I think they need to continue to add or address before they hit training camp in July.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's kind of fun looking at your roster now because, this roster for the Vikings and Raiders is probably about 95% complete in what you're going to see going into training camp. Yeah, there might be a free agent that signs here and there, but for the most part, I mean, this is what you guys are going to bring into training camp and preseason. So it's definitely fun to look at the roster. And, there is a little bit of holes there for the Vikings. But overall, man, I mean, I really like the Vikings roster. And another thing, just touching on JJ McCarthy real quick before we move on, is, I mean, out of all these quarterbacks, no one has it better than JJ McCarthy. So yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
JJ McCarthy should have been a second round pick, but he might look like a stud with all these weapons. I mean, so we'll see what happens there. Caleb Williams went into a really nice situation too, but yeah, and it sounded like this is where JJ McCarthy wanted to go, so it's cool that he actually ended up on the Minnesota Vikings. So overall, man, your team's going to be able to compete there in the NFC North, and then it's kind of fun looking forward when you guys have 100+ mil and your first round pick going into 2025 too. So I think the future's really bright in Minnesota. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what they can do, and maybe they'll shock people this season, and it'll be a whole lot better than what we think. So I know the NFL schedule release is coming up here, I believe, in May. So I'm really excited to see the breakdown of that and what we have to look forward to in the upcoming season.
Yeah, no doubt. But moving on to the Raiders. So the Raiders weren't too aggressive in, moving up for a quarterback. I don't think anyone really thought that Michael Penix was going to go as high as he did, especially to the Atlanta Falcons. So for the first time in a very, very long time, the Raiders stayed put and they took BPA, best player available. And with the 13th overall pick, they took tight end Brock Bowers out of Georgia. And I was not expecting this. He wasn't even on my radar. Talisi Fuanga was still on the board there at 13. I thought for sure he was going to be the pick there because that right tackle position is a massive need for us. But Tom Telesco said, screw that. We're going to go with the BPA. And they took Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers was seventh on my big board. We got him at 13. And I'm pretty sure Brock Bowers, I think, was fourth on your big board. So definitely really, really good value there. And, some people think that Brock Bowers is one of, if not the best tight end in the history of college football. He's the only tight end to ever win the John Mackey Award twice. And honestly, he probably should have won it as a freshman, too. They gave it to Trey McBride, and Trey McBride ended up the season with 1 touchdown. And Brock Bowers' freshman year, he finished the season with 13 touchdowns. So he probably should have won it all three years, but just a perfect fit for what we want to do. Now we did draft Michael Mayer in last year's draft with our second round pick, but I think it's still a great fit. Michael Mayer is more of a old school inline type tight end where he's going to line up, off the tackle and run routes, off the tackle. Where Brock Bowers, over 50% of his snaps at Georgia, he played in the slot. He played outside a lot. He played in the slot majority of the time, and he actually lined up in the backfield and actually got some carries there at Georgia too. So he's just a big time chess piece. I think he's going to fit in really well. He's going to end up being a power slot receiver for us. So we'll have Devontae Adams out wide. We'll have Jacoby Myers out wide. We'll have Brock Bowers playing in the slot probably majority of the time. And then we'll have Michael Mayer playing that old school tight end inline position there. So I really like the weapons. I thought that was great value there. So overall, I'm super, super excited about the Brock Bowers pick.
Yeah, that was like you said, that was really great value for you guys at 13. I was kind of thinking the same thing as we were watching the draft together. I was like, oh, yes, they're going to get Fuaga here or
Yep.
Fuanga at number 13. But like you said, they kind of shocked us when best player available, best player that I had left on my rankings. Because like you said, he was my 4th overall player in this draft. And yeah, I'm really excited to see him in Las Vegas there, and he might have to figure out what's going on with his dad because I don't know if you saw that meme. His dad looked like he was pretty nervous about potentially going back to Vegas there. So maybe he's a guy that is not supposed to be allowed back, and maybe his family doesn't know about that.
Yeah.
That was a meme. It was pretty funny. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And I think I shared it on our X account too, so you can go back and look at our feed and maybe find that on there. But I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, the meme was hilarious. And I guess so Brock Bowers grew up in the Bay Area, which is pretty cool. So he actually grew up going to like Raiders training camps when they had it back in Napa Valley. So that's pretty sweet. But I guess his family grew up 49er fans. So I think his dad was kind of a little upset there that his son, was playing for his favorite team's rival. But his dad was in the facility when Brock Bowers got there, wearing a Raider hat, Raider shirt, shaking Mark Davis's hand. So I think he's going to
Yeah, I'm
jump
sure he's
on.
pumped.
Yeah, he'll be jumping on the dark side soon enough. So overall,
No
very
doubt.
very happy with that pick. But moving on to round two, we took BPA in round two. Jackson Powers Johnson was still on the board. We really didn't need a center. We got Andre James. But what's nice about Jackson Powers Johnson is he can play guard. So I think that's where he's going to play for us. He should be our starting right guard if I had to guess. But I've been saying it for a while. I think he's the safest player in this entire draft. He's built like a bowling ball. He's super strong. He's really good in run blocking and pass blocking. So a player that I really really like. In most mocks, he was mocked to be a first round pick. So great value there. He was 21 on my big board and 23 on yours, if I remember right. And he went 44th overall. So, I mean, the value is just fantastic there. So I love it. And he's pretty much just an old school Raider football player, just a mean bully. Listening to his call when he got called, he was very emotional. And I love that. And he said that he's going to kick some ass for AP. So definitely an old school player, and he's going to be an absolute dog for the Raiders. So beefing up that offensive line, because I know AP is going to want to run the hell out of the ball. So I was very, very excited about that pick. But what did you think about that Jackson Powers pick there?
Well, yeah, I'm very high on him too, and just the fact that he didn't even go in round one just blew my mind. So
Yeah.
incredible value there in the second round. I picked number 12 there in round two. Like you said, I think he's gonna be a plug and play, wherever they put him at center or guard, and you're gonna have a guy moving forward for many years to come, very physical, handles himself greatly against the bull rush. Just an absolute dog, like you talked about. So I was really pumped up for that pick, and just these first two picks, just very impressive what the Raiders are doing. Adding to the trenches, because Brock Bowers, like you said, can go in there and play inline too,
Yep.
and he's an incredible run blocker, so that helps out greatly. And like you said, if AP wants to run the football, well, they're really, really starting to build that whole line there in Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. And I was really happy that we spent our first two picks on the offensive side of the ball. After AP took over, I said this a million times, but the Raiders finished up with the number one defense in the entire league. And we were able to keep our defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, and we signed a guy like Christian Wilkins. So our defense should be, pretty damn good next year. So it's nice that we're beefing up that offensive line, getting playmakers, improving that offensive line. So I was really, really happy with those first two picks. But moving on to round three here, we drafted the 13th overall pick in the third round was Delmar Glaze from Maryland. He played 16 games at left tackle and 16 games at right tackle. So it's nice that he's got the versatility. Right tackle still is our biggest need. So it looks like Munford and Glaze will be battling for that right tackle spot, which in my opinion is a little shaky. Most people had Glaze going later than the third round, so it was a bit of a reach. But there was a ton of tackles that went right before the Raiders did here. So I feel like Tom maybe panicked a little bit and is like, we just need to get a guy. We have to get a guy that's higher on our board. Maybe should be a fourth or fifth round pick, but with the way that these tackles are going off the board, we're just going to have to stick and pick and get our guy. So, Glaze, definitely a developmental guy, but so is Munford. So our right tackle spot is definitely still a weakness. We'll see how these guys battle out in camp, but hopefully Glaze can step up and be that day one starter. So we'll see what happens there. But moving on to the fourth round, this is another big time need that we had, and we took DeCamerion Richardson from Mississippi State. And this was actually, when it first happened, I'm like, damn, I thought this was a little bit of a reach, but looking back and, going back and watching his film, he's one of the most athletic cornerbacks in this entire draft, 6'2", 190 pounds, ran a 4.34, but the athletic stat that I like the most is he ran the second fastest 10-yard split out of the entire draft at a 1.48. So that short line quickness is fantastic. And another thing that I really like about him is he's a tackling machine. He led all ACC corners the past 2 seasons in tackles. So definitely a guy that's a kind of a missile on the outside. that can come up and smack running backs and smack receivers on screens and stuff. So definitely a willing tackler. We'll see what happens here. He is a fourth round pick. And our cornerback room, we're still looking for that cornerback one. We're gonna have Nate Hobbs in the slot. On the outside, we're gonna have Jack Jones, and then the opposite side of Jack Jones is still a huge question mark. We know we drafted Jacorian Bennett last year, and he was he ran a 4.2, so he's got the athletic traits, but overall he was just not good last year. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if we, dip in that free agent pool. We still have money. We're going to clear up another $20 million after June 1st once Jimmy G is officially off our books. And, there's still guys out there like Adoree Jackson, Patrick Peterson, Stephon Gilmore. So I fully anticipate, one of those three guys, potentially Xavier Howard still out there too. So I'm anticipating one of those guys being a Raider when it's all said and done. But definitely a nice rotational piece. We'll see if he can get there in training camp and preseason, and hopefully surprise some people. But he does have that the rawness and the athletic trait that you want to see in a cornerback. So overall, I wasn't too mad at that pick. Moving on to the 5th round, we drafted Tommy Eichenberg, a linebacker from Ohio State. Now this was a pick that I was really excited about. He was a 2-time captain and the green dot guy at Ohio State for the past 2 seasons, and he's a fantastic, one of the better run stuffing linebackers in this entire draft. So getting him in round 5 was super, super nice. I do anticipate him, being a potential starter on first and second downs. He's not really good in coverage, but that's okay because we got other guys like Divine Diablo who can cover on third down and stuff. So he doesn't have to be that. And he's going to be a damn good special teamer, I think, at the next level too. So in the 5th round there, I really like that pick. Moving on to the 6th round, we drafted Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire. He's a running back, and he's got some pretty impressive stats. He led college football in all-purpose yards the past 2 seasons. There was a game last year where he had 12 catches and 295 yards receiving. Mel Kiper said he's the best receiving back in this entire draft. And that's actually really nice because we do have Zamir White. It looks like Alexander Madison is going to have a significant role in this offense, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is what it is. So maybe Dylan can come in on third down, catch a lot of screens, kind of a little playmaker. Think of let's see, Danny Woodhead. That's what.
Sproles?
Yeah, Sproles or like a
Okay.
Danny Woodhead, a guy like that. So I definitely like it. And another thing that's nice about him is he returned 2 kicks and 2 punts last year for touchdowns. So he definitely has the potential to maybe be our starting kick returner and punt returner too. So overall, not a bad pick for the 6th round. Moving on to the 7th round, we drafted Trey Taylor, a safety from Air Force. He's actually Ed Reed's cousin, which is super sick. And his stats in college were actually really impressive. He was a first-team All-American this past year, and he won the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to the best defensive back in college this past season. So he definitely put up the stats. He's definitely an impressive player. I don't think he's really going to be competing much for a starting role, but he's a nice piece and probably going to be a good special teamer for us too. Maybe in a couple years, he can take over that role for probably Marcus Epps, because I don't think Marcus Epps probably in a couple years after his contract expires, maybe we don't bring a guy like that back if Trey Taylor is progressing the way you want to see. So not a bad, 7th round pick. Like I said, these 7th round picks, you're kind of just throwing a dart at the board and hoping for the best. And then the last pick for us, another 7th rounder, was a cornerback from Pittsburgh, MJ Devonshire. And this was another nice pick too. I actually am just as a biggest fan as on Devonshire as I am with the guy that we took in the 4th round, Richardson. Devonshire was really, really good ball skills. He had 7 interceptions the past 2 seasons. He ran a 4.45 40 and he's got a 39-inch vertical, so he's plenty athletic for the next level. And another guy that's just a get at jabby at the line of scrimmage. On screen passes, he's going to blow him up because he's a very willing tackler. So a guy that I really like, and I would not be surprised one bit if MJ Devonshire gets pretty decent playing time this upcoming season, even though he's a 7th round pick. So overall, I was really happy with the first 2 picks in this draft for the Raiders. I think our 3rd round and down, these are definitely developmental guys and guys that aren't guaranteed to be starters, like the Vikings had, the kicker, which is going to start. I think Kyrie Jackson's going to be a starter. Where the rest of these guys for the Raiders are definitely question marks. So we'll see what happens. But, with these top two guys that we got in Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson, overall, I was pretty damn happy with the Raiders draft.
Yeah, you can't beat the top two picks there that they had too.
No,
So
definitely not.
just like you said, they'll be plug and play starters there for the Raiders going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we'll touch base on we're gonna touch base on the NFC North real quick. So we'll maybe just start here in Chicago. Yeah, so Chicago, we know they had the number one pick. They took Caleb Williams, a quarterback out of USC. Then at number 9, they sat there, and I was completely shocked by this that they ended up getting him there based on how the board fell. But Roma Dunze out of Washington, wide receiver. So now they're going to have Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore, Cole Kmet for Caleb Williams to go throw to. So Chicago's building a very, very nice wide receiver and tight end room there. And, even their backfield, they signed Swift this offseason too, so they're definitely making some good moves. After that, they only had 3 picks the rest of the draft, and they drafted offense tackle out of Yale. Not really sure, too much about him, but they got a guy that I was hoping the Vikings would maybe get like in round 7 or 6, and that is the punter out of Iowa, Torrey Taylor. So, that would be a very, very solid pick for them there. I think he's just a kind of almost like a generational punter,
Yeah, absolutely.
as you can say it maybe. But out of Australia, they keep producing those punters coming out of there. And it's funny, Caleb Williams actually texted him when he was drafted and said, "You're not going to have to punt many times with us," or something like that. So very confident there, Caleb Williams is in himself. And yeah, the Bears had a very solid round 1.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, I think the Bears are going to be a playoff team next season. I really do. That offense, the playmakers that they have is just incredible. Getting Roma Dunze, I was hoping that he wasn't going to fall to 9, and he actually did right in the Bears' lap there. So, Caleb and Rome for the next decade plus is nuts. They got Torrey Taylor, he's just a generational punter. I think he had one punt this year that was like almost 70 yards. So,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
nuts.
he's freaking crazy.
Well, moving on to the Detroit Lions, and I was really impressed with the Lions, what they did on day 1 and day 2. They ended up drafting Terrion Arnold with the 24th pick there in the first round out of Alabama, cornerback. Then they came back in round 2 and drafted Ennis Rakestraw Jr. in the second round there, and with the 29th pick out of Missouri, another cornerback. So, they really had a need there at D-back, and I think they went out there and got 2 guys that could push the start right away, especially Arnold. I would expect him to start from day 1. Then Rakestraw, I would imagine him kind of being a rotational guy in and out starting off, but he could also push the start as the season would progress. Then also just drafting Mekhi Mekhi Wingo out of LSU, defensive tackle. There is another solid ad for them as well. So overall, very impressive draft with Detroit. And then they went in the 6th round and they drafted Christian Mahogany out of Boston College, offensive guard, player that I was pretty high on. I like him a lot. And yeah, so they just had a really solid draft there, and Brad Holmes continues to add really, really good players there in Detroit.
Yeah, no doubt. That Holmes is one heck of a GM. I mean, getting a guy like Arnold at 24 is just insane value. And then I didn't think Ennis Rakestraw was going to fall as far as he did in that second round, too. So getting 2 corners there was massive for those guys. I thought, looking at their team last year, their biggest weakness was that secondary position, and or was their secondary in general. And, they went out and signed Carlton Davis, so that was huge. They had Brian Branch from last year, who was an absolute stud. So now you're going to add guys like, Terrion Arnold and Rakestraw to that defense. I mean, that's just a fantastic upgrade throughout this offseason. So I really like what the Lions did. And yeah, man, the NFC North is getting really, really strong. Going to be one of the stronger divisions in football.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, well, moving on to the Green Bay Packers. So in the round 1, Green Bay kind of surprised me with who they took there. They took Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle to Arizona, the 25th pick. He was rated he's rated the 40th overall prospect according to ESPN. He's 6'5", 311 pounds. He has some nice size. He did start 37 games at left tackle Arizona, and So we'll see what happens, but definitely kind of a reach there in the first round. I think he was a big surprise for me that he went round one. Their second round pick, they drafted Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M, linebacker, who's just a very, very solid linebacker prospect. Your number one overall linebacker in this class.
Yep.
He was my number 2 overall linebacker in this class. Also in the second round, they had pick number 26 there in the second round. They drafted Javon Bullard, a safety out of Georgia, which was a nice signing as well. So ESPN has him rated number 1 in the position rankings at safety. So they got him there in the second round. Then they drafted Marshawn Lloyd there in the third round, running back out of USC, which was another solid signing. Then after that, they kind of, the biggest thing would be maybe Michael Pratt there in the seventh round was a kind of interesting pick. Then, man, this one that surprised me the most was just how far this guy has fallen over the year, and that's Kalen King. If you'd go back to this time last year, you look at mocks for the 2024 NFL draft, Kalen King out of Penn State cornerback was going in the first round in a lot of mocks that I've seen. So having him fall to round 7 is just crazy.
I couldn't believe that Kalen King fell as far as he did. We were getting towards the end of the 7th round there, and I'm thinking like, man, is this guy going to go undrafted? Because like you said, in a lot of these mocks, he was projected to be a first-round pick, going back as far as, early before the season started for college football. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Eli Ricks situation with him at Alabama. He was projected a couple years ago to be a number 1 over or a first-round pick, and he ended up going undrafted, but he did play and contribute with the Philadelphia Eagles this past season and played pretty decent for them. So I'm fully anticipate Kalen King doing the same for the Green Bay Packers this year. But overall, I thought they had a really nice draft. That Jordan Morgan pick there at 25 was definitely a little bit of a reach in my opinion. I thought there was tackles out there that were better, like Tyler Guyton and even like Roger Rosengarten. I had him a little higher too. But still, definitely a position in need there at left tackle. He's going to be a day 1 starter for him. And then, like you said, Edgerrin Cooper was a top 40 player for me. Javon Bullard was Mel Kiper's number 1 safety in this entire draft. He's going to be a day 1 starter opposite of Xavier McKinney. Marshawn Floyd, probably going to be the backup behind Josh Jacobs. I had Marshawn Lloyd as a top 5 running back in this draft. So, yeah, just overall, I thought, their first pick was a little questionable, but after that, they really rebounded and had one hell of a draft. So, yeah, I really like what the Packers did this year.
Yeah, we'll see what they had a lot of picks there over the whole draft process. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with those players, but they have a pretty nice team already going forward. So just adding some more players to that roster will help them out. If I had to predict right now, I'd guess that Detroit and Green Bay would be the top two teams fighting for the NFC North. So we'll see what happens with Chicago and the Vikings here this season as well. So moving on to the AFC West, and Zach, since this is your favorite team's division, maybe you can start off and talk about what the Denver Broncos did there in the draft.
Yeah, sounds good. And I was so pumped with the Denver Broncos draft because I was really hoping that they were going to stay put there at 12 and take Bo Nix, and that's exactly what they did. Super funny pick. I didn't think that he should have sniffed the first round. I think even a guy like this in the second round probably would have been a reach in my book. So they sat there and took him at 12. Definitely a desperation move. They weren't going to go ahead and start Zach Wilson this year, and they definitely weren't going to start Jared Stidham. So they had to be bold. They didn't have a second round pick, and the way these quarterbacks were falling, they're probably like, screw it, we're just going to stay here at 12 and take our franchise quarterback. So they took Bo Nix there with that 12th overall pick. So I was super happy with that. And then other than that, they really didn't do too much. The one pick that they did have that I was really jealous with is they did get Troy Franklin in the 4th round, and I cannot believe that Troy Franklin fell as far as he did. I don't know what the reasoning was behind it, but he's from Oregon. Bo Nix is obviously from Oregon, so they're going to reunite there in Denver. I'm a little jealous about that because that's fantastic value for the Denver Broncos, and there's rumors of Cortland Sutton possibly being traded, so getting a talent like that in the 4th round is fantastic value. And then they went out there and got Audric Estime, the running back from Notre Dame, there in the 5th round. And I thought that was great value too. He's definitely going to be a first and second down back. He's not going to do much out of the backfield on 3rd down. But I do anticipate him getting significant carries there in Denver this upcoming season because he is a really good running back. I even saw some people had him as the number one running back in this entire draft. So definitely got a beast there, got a bowling ball. And, he's going to be able to wear teams down in the fourth quarter if the Broncos can find a way to get leads late in games this year. So overall, I was kind of happy that the Denver Broncos had a pretty disappointing draft. But them getting Troy Franklin there in the fourth round and Estime in the fifth round, I thought they were those two were really, really good value picks there.
I completely agree with that too. Just the fact that Franklin was there in the fourth round when we had him mocked there in our first round, and he was both in our top tens too for wide receivers there. So yeah, I was just completely surprised by that he was still there. I'm not sure why he was there, but
yeah, I don't get it either.
Denver's going to reap the benefit of that one. And then, like you said, they took Estime in the fifth round there. And, just a big back, 5'11", 221. He had 18 touchdowns last year for Notre Dame. So he should be getting some good carries there in Denver right from the get-go, I would imagine. And him and Javonte Williams should be, a 1-2 tandem there in the Denver backfield.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so moving on with the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, I was kind of bummed with their draft, to be honest, because they went out there with the 28th overall pick and took wide receiver Xavier Worthy. I really didn't think that they were going to pull the trigger on him. I thought they were going to get a guy that was, potentially more of a wide receiver one, like Xavier Leggett or A.D. Mitchell. But they said, screw it, we're going to go with speed, even though they got Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown, when he participated in the combine, ran a 4.27. And now they got Xavier Worthy, who holds the record with a 4.21. So they're just going speed. Mahomes is going to be chucking a lot of deep balls. Travis Kelce is going to be working underneath. That's going to be one tough offense to stop, unfortunately. And then with their second round pick, they took Kingsley Samatia. He's a offensive tackle from BYU. And he's got some good bloodlines. He's cousins with Puka Nacua and Sewell from the Lions. So he's got some good bloodlines there. I think he's going to be a pretty good tackle. And then just moving on, they really didn't do too much that I liked until round 6. And they got Kamal Hayden from Tennessee, a really, really good corner. I was surprised that he actually fell all the way to the 6th round. That's a guy that I wanted the Raiders to take a flyer on, even if it was like round 5, because I really thought that, he's a good player and he's probably going to be one heck of a pro. So overall, I thought the Chiefs had a good draft. Unfortunately, but man, getting Xavier Worthy in that Kansas City offense is pretty scary.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And just another guy, too, this 4th round tight end, Jared Wiley out of TCU.
Yep.
He was originally a guy from Texas. He played for the Longhorns there and then transferred to TCU. But just kind of athletic tight end, 6'6", 249. He has some decent, pretty good speed and makes some nice plays down the seam over his college career. So just another tight end that could potentially turn into something there with Patrick Mahomes going forward. So he definitely has some nice traits. But yeah, like you said too, Xavier Worthy was the big one. Kamal Hayden in the 6th round was a steal that I thought. And then that's pretty cool. I didn't know that Kingsley Samatia out of BYU there is cousins with Puka Nacua and Sewell from the Lions. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until he actually got drafted. So yeah, definitely a cool little story there. And that tight end, he's a beast. I mean, 6'6", 250, like you said. And then today they went out and extended Travis Kelce. So I was kind of hoping Travis Kelce was towards the end of his career. He signed a new 2-year deal, so Travis Kelce ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So that's another unfortunate news for Raider fans. But yeah, man, Kansas City, they're charged up and they're looking to go for another Super Bowl run, unfortunately. But moving on to the Chargers, and god darn it, man. Chargers had one hell of a draft. I hate to say it, but they did. Later on, we're going to talk about our 3 favorite drafts. I probably should have put the Chargers in there, but because they're an AFC West team, I didn't. But man, they had one of my favorite drafts. In the first round with the 5th overall pick, they stayed put. They didn't trade back like a lot of people thought they maybe would. And they took Joe Alt, best tackle in this draft. He's going to be an absolute stud. They got Rashawn Slater and now Joe Alt on the other side. You could argue that those are the 2 best tackle tandems in the entire NFL. So home run pick there. In the 2nd round, they go out and get Ladd McConkey, a receiver that's going to be a better pro than he was college player, super athletic, really, really good route runner. I know a player that you were really, really high on. Yeah, they took him with the 2nd overall pick in the 2nd round there. I thought he was going to be a 1st round pick, so the fact that they got him there. absolute steal. In the third round, they went out and got Junior Colson from Michigan. He was Jim Harbaugh's leader there on that historic Michigan defense. So getting a guy like that to kind of take over for Jim's defense there with the Chargers was a huge pick for him. And just going down the list, they got stud after stud in pretty much every round. Just moving forward a little bit to round 5, they got Cam Hart, another corner that I really, really liked. I wanted the Raiders to take a flyer on him too. 6'3", 202 pounds, and if you watched him play against Marvin Harrison Jr., he played damn well against him. So I think he's going to be one heck of a pro. And then in the 7th round, I cannot believe that this player fell as far as he did. Brendan Rice, wide receiver from USC, Jerry Rice's boy, fell all the way to the 7th round. And with the way that this receiving core is looking in Los Angeles for the Chargers, I think Brendan Rice is probably going to be a day one starter for him. There'll probably be Quentin Colston or Quentin Johnston on the outside, Brendan Rice, and then Ladd McConkey kind of working in that slot there. So just really, really great value all around the board. And man, Chargers had one heck of a draft.
Yeah, I really like their draft too, and just Brendan Rice going the 7th round just blew my mind.
Yep.
He's the 14th ranked wide receiver prospect according to ESPN on their board too. So I'm sure they were pretty shocked, the analysts there, that he slid to round 7, pick number 5. But yeah, overall very impressive. We'll see if they made my top 3 here coming up later on in the show, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But Ladd McConkey, absolutely love that pick. Think he'll be fantastic there in LA with the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and then can't go wrong with Joe Alt there at left tackle. I was pretty surprised that, they went offensive tackle at that spot. But man, like looking at it, they could have maybe Malik Neighbors there with a 5th pick. But what would you rather have? Would you rather have Joe Alt there and Ladd McConkey in round 2, or a Malik Neighbors and maybe one of these other offensive tackles there in round 2? I think if it was me, I would love to have Alt and McConkey with which is what they ended up doing.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go ahead and agree with you, because that's probably what I would do too. I think, comparing Joe Alt to what you're going to get in the 2nd round, that's such a big difference. Joe Alt is the clear-cut number 1 tackle in this draft. And then, Ladd McConkey and Neighbors. Yes, Neighbors is definitely a better wide receiver prospect, but I think Ladd McConkey can go there and catch 100-plus balls with Justin Herbert. I really believe that. Keenan Allen did that last season in only 13 games, so I don't see why Ladd McConkey can't go out there and dominate, especially, working in that slot there for the Chargers. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I would go with Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey, and then getting Brendan Rice there in the 7th round. Anytime you get a starting receiver in the 7th round, talk about crazy value, and that's what Brendan Rice is going to be for the Chargers.
No doubt. So, yeah, fantasy football fans, just be remembering that Ladd McConkey might be a guy that you want to go after there, and especially PPR leagues here next season.
Yeah, no doubt. He's going to be catching a lot of balls as a rookie. There's no doubt.
For sure. So, Zach, if you just had to kind of maybe compare the 2 drafts between the 2 divisions there, NFC North, AFC West, which one did you like the best, the NFC North teams drafts or the AFC West teams drafts?
God, that's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and say NFC North. I just think with what the Bears did, getting Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, that's pretty much a cheat code. I thought the Packers, other than, Jordan Morgan there with the 1st round, I thought they really recovered nicely and really hit a home run with the rest of the picks there. And then the Vikings, I thought what the Vikings did, being able to keep that 2025 first-round pick, still getting your franchise guy, getting the number 1 defensive player in this draft was a home run. And then the way the Lions, stayed put at 24 and got one of the better corner. Arguably, he could be, the number 1 corner in this entire draft in a position of need. So they really built up that, that secondary very nicely. So, man, I'm a massive, massive fan of what the NFC North did. That division is going to be super, super tough. But just comparing it to the AFC West, the Raiders, I thought overall they had a nice draft. The first 2 picks there, definitely to get starters, but the rest of the draft was questionable. The Chiefs were picking late, but they did get Xavier Worthy. I thought the Broncos overall had a pretty bad draft with going ahead and taking Bo Nix there at 12. So, and then the Chargers had one heck of a draft. So, but yeah, just overall, I'm going to say the NFC North, but how about you?
Yeah, I think overall too, you have to pick the NFC North as well. So just the draft that those teams had in general, I think made their teams a whole lot better than where they were coming into the draft. And of course, the LA Chargers had a tremendous draft. The Kansas City Chiefs, like you said, drafted Worthy there in the first round, which is going to help them immediately too. So, but yeah, and the Raiders too, getting Brock Bowers and then Jackson Powers Johnson there in the second round is going to help them out big time too. So, but yeah, overall, I just like the NFC North draft a little better for those reasons that you also stated.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, I think you could argue that those are the two toughest divisions in the entire NFL. I mean, I'm really curious to see what these experts are going to say when it comes to predicting, who's going to win these divisions because, I don't think the Chiefs are guaranteed favorite there. And I don't think the Lions are a guaranteed favorite there either. So it's going to be super competitive. And I can't wait to see how this all plays out, man.
Yeah, me there. It's going to be an exciting season coming up here in 2024, 2025.
No
So,
doubt.
well, moving on, we're going to talk about our two surprise picks in round one. So, yeah, I'll just kind of start off. I'll start off maybe at number two, and then we'll work our way up to number one. So, my second surprise pick in round one was just Xavier Leggett there, or Leggett, wide receiver out of South Carolina that went number 32 to the Carolina Panthers. I was just surprised they went over some guys like A.D. Mitchell there, Keon Coleman, Lad McConkey. I had them all rated higher than Leggett. So yeah, just very interesting. They do keep him in that Carolinas. He's he's from that area. I think he might be from Southern or South Carolina. So
Yep.
very cool for him to be going back and they're staying there and playing for his hometown or home state or home area, Carolina Panthers. So I'm sure he's super excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I thought that was a reach too. And the main reason is just like you said, those other receivers that were still on the board, Lad McConkey, especially A.D. Mitchell. I can't believe A.D. Mitchell fell as far as he did. But just talking on the Carolina Panthers quick, man, they really, really helped Bryce Young out this offseason. I mean, just looking at the roster, Jonathan Brooks, they got Deontay Johnson, Xavier Leggett, Adam Thielen, and they also drafted Jatavion Sanders, the tight end. I thought he was a number 2 tight end in this draft.
Yeah.
So just overall, I mean, Bryce Young's going to have a lot more to work with this year than he did last year. But yeah, that's a good pick. But my number 2 surprise for the first round was Jordan Morgan. We kind of talked about him a little bit there with the Panthers. They took him 25th overall, and he wasn't even in my top 40 players. I thought guys like Tyler Guyton, Patrick Paul, and Rosengarten, like I said, were all higher on my board than that. And I thought they could, I thought they were going to get another weapon for Jordan Love. Obviously, they didn't do that when they had Aaron Rodgers getting a first-round receiver, and it looks like they're not going to do that with Jordan Love either. But just having McConkey, Xavier Leggett, Keenan Cole, and A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy was even still on the board. So I just thought they were going to go a different route. But yeah, that was a big-time surprise for me when they announced his name.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to guess that we're probably going to both have the same number one, and that was Michael Penix Jr. going number 8. Never would have thought he was going number 8, especially to Atlanta after they just signed Kirk Cousins, that massive deal. Long, what do they give him, 4 years as well? So,
Yep.
Man, I kind of just feel bad for Penix Jr. that he got put in this situation because he's a guy that I think could just start right away. And now he's got to sit there behind Cousins, and who knows, maybe Kirk comes out there, doesn't do as well as everyone thinks he will do, and they kind of have an assurance policy at number 8. But hey, if you're all in on winning and you go out there and draft your replacement quarterback there in the top 10, like, I'm sure Kirk Cousins is wondering what the hell is going on too. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens with that for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's just so weird. What a waste of a pick. I mean, the reason why you go and get a guy like Kirk Cousins is because you think that you're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, the Falcons have a good defense. Their biggest weakness definitely was pass rush. They finished towards the end of the entire NFL in pass rush and sacks, this previous season. So going out there and getting Michael Penix there at 8 made no sense at all. I think Michael Penix is the most pro-ready quarterback in this entire draft, and that's even over Caleb Williams because I think Caleb Williams likes to play a little bit too much outside of the pocket, and I think that's going to be an adjustment for him. So yeah, it just sucks that Kirk Cousins, he's locked up for 4 years. I think they might be able to get out of his contract after 2, but still, Michael Penix is 24 years old, and the fact that he's going to sit for at least 2 years, probably more, to be honest. I mean, he might be 27, 28 before he actually has a chance to start in the NFL, and that's a big-time bummer because I wanted to see Michael Penix play as a rookie. So, yeah, that's definitely the biggest head-scratcher of this entire draft, no doubt about it.
No doubt. Well, moving on. So we're going to talk about our two surprise picks after round one. So anywhere from round two to round seven. So I'll just start with my number two, and that is Troy Franklin falling to day three to round four, which was nuts. You know, just don't understand why. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but yeah, I just don't know what I'm missing there. Why did he fall to the fourth round? Just completely blows my mind that he wasn't a day two guy. So yeah, just the Denver Broncos getting tremendous value with Troy Franklin, and I would imagine that he would step right in there and he'll be starting right away in Denver as well.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I mean, it makes no sense to me that you're talking about a guy, like I said, I think he was a little handcuffed in that offense with all the quick hitters that Oregon does. And he still had 81 catches, 1,400 yards, and 14 touchdowns last year. So he's going to be one heck of a pro. That's a big time target there for Bo Nix. But yeah, it makes no sense that he fell all the way to the fourth round. But the number one guy I had on my list was Tavondre Sweat. He went 38th overall to the Tennessee Titans. You know, I thought the DWI would drop him a little bit in this draft, and it didn't affect his stock one bit, which was super crazy. I thought, you know, in this last podcast, one of my bold predictions was he was going to be there for the Vikings in round 4, and I couldn't have been more wrong there. I mean, him going 38th overall. And it's not only that, I thought, you know, even just say the DUI didn't happen, I still think, you know, 38th was probably a little high for Tavondre Sweat. I think he's just a two-down player at the next level. He's, you know, going to play on first and second downs. He ain't going to be playing on third downs and pass rushing downs. And he definitely fades late in games too, but he is an elite run stuffer, and that's why he did go 38th overall. But man, I was really surprised when they announced his name because I was anticipating him being a day 3 pick.
Yeah, for sure. I remember watching the draft together that night, and we just looked at each other like, wow.
Yeah.
He went in
Yeah.
he went in the second round that early. We were both just completely shocked. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really nice pick as well.
Yep.
Well, my number one is actually Brendan Rice falling to round 7. So yeah, I just don't get why he fell to round 7. Makes no sense to me. I thought he'd for sure go somewhere in maybe the 4th round at the latest. But yeah, I just don't get that one either, you know. Looking at ESPN here, they had Brendan Rice ranked as the number 14th overall wide receiver in this class and the 81st overall player in general. So
Mm-hmm.
just completely shocking to me. I don't get it. And like we said before, the Chargers getting tremendous value there in the 7th round.
Yeah, it just made no sense at all. And if you go back, like you and I both watched a ton of USC games this past season, and every game it seemed like Brendan Rice was showing up with Caleb Williams. I mean, he had double-digit touchdowns last year, almost 1,000 yards, and he's got nice size. He's 6'3", 205, 210 pounds, and he's a really good route runner. So the fact that he fell as far as he did makes no sense. And like I said, I fully anticipate him being a day 1 starter there in the Chargers. So that's a great pick. But my number 2 choice was Peyton Wilson he went 98th to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which just makes no sense. If you go and watch his film, I know you had him in your top 40, and the fact that he fell to 98th was just bizarre. You know, he definitely did have some injury concerns, but I mean, if you just go back and watch his film, like I said, he's a day 1 impact starter. Then it just seems like year after year, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers are always having elite receivers, and he's going to be the next great one because I think he's going to be a fantastic pro. And Luke Kuechly, I was listening to one of his interviews during the Combine, so a little sooner, and he said that Peyton Wilson reminds him a lot of himself, which is crazy because Luke Kuechly is one of the better linebackers that we've seen in a long time. So, yeah, I can't believe he fell as far as he did, and definitely a day 1 starting impact player for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, we're going to move on now. We're going to go on to our favorite round 1 pick. So, yeah, my favorite round 1 pick, maybe people say I'm a little homerish, but hey, we got my best player available and best defensive player overall in this whole draft, and that's Dallas Turner, defensive end out of Alabama. So getting him at 17, I thought was just absolutely insane. A lot of mocks had him going in, you know, the first defensive player taken in the top 10 there. So getting him at 17 just completely blows my mind, and I can't wait to see what number he's going to be wearing here for the Vikings. And I'm definitely going to maybe have to be purchasing that jersey here pretty soon.
Dude, if I were a Vikings fan, I definitely would because he's going to be an absolute stud for you guys. And I kind of knew that you were going to go the Dallas Turner route, and I don't blame you one bit because he was going to be my choice too. But yeah, getting the number 1 defensive player at 17 is just crazy, crazy value, and that was just a grand slam pick by the Vikings. But my favorite pick for the first round was Rome Odunze. He fell all the way to 9. I was kind of hoping that he was going to go before that, and he fell right in the Bears' lap. It was too good to pass up. Now him and Caleb Williams, I cannot wait to see this offense. It sucks that it's with the NFC, the NFC North with the Chicago Bears, but Caleb Williams at quarterback, DJ Moore's a number 1 receiver. Keenan Allen, in my opinion, is still a number 1 receiver looking at what he did last year. Now you get Rome Odunze, number 1 receiver in a lot of drafts. Like I said before, he reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald. So this is what kind of player that, the Bears are getting. So they have 3 number 1s on their roster, which is nuts. Over 90 catches, almost 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns last season is absolutely no joke. So I was really pumped. I was hoping that he wasn't going to go to the Bears, but now that he's on the Bears and there's 3 number 1, Rome's going to see a lot of one-on-ones, and Caleb Williams is just going to force feed him the ball. So I think Rome Odunze is going to be a fantastic pro and a fantastic player for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting pick to see what happens there at the Chicago Bears. Man, that 3, they could have a 3-headed monster there in Chicago. That's going to be pretty tough to cover for a lot of these teams going forward. So
heck yeah.
Well, my favorite day 2 pick, we kind of talked about him a little bit. He was your surprise guy that fell in after round 1, and that was Peyton Wilson out of North Carolina State, linebacker, drafted pick number 98 to the Steelers. But yeah, in his college career, he had 402 tackles, which is insane. He has a lot of production there. He ran the fastest 40 out of all of the linebackers at the combine with a 4.43. He does really well with the run defense, and actually does a nice job in coverage as well. And then this past, he ended his college career with 7 interceptions and 20 passes defended. And last year, he also had 6 sacks. So just a guy that could maybe do everything, to kind of do it all linebacker. He's my favorite linebacker in this draft. Just the fact that he, fell to number 98 to the Steelers is just incredible value for them.
Yeah, I still can't believe that he fell as far as he did. But my favorite day 2 pick was Tyler Nubin to the Giants. We kind of braked him up a lot. You had him in your top 20. I had him in my top 20. He fell all the way to 47. They did lose Xavier McKinney, a really good safety, a young safety to the Green Bay Packers. But I honestly think that Tyler Nubin's a better player. So a day 1 playmaker, impact player for the G-Men. And yeah, I knew he was going to be a day 2 pick. And he's just going to be an absolute superstar there for the New York Giants.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, moving on to our favorite day 3 pick. So my favorite day 3 pick is Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee. He went in the 4th round, pick number 120 to the Miami Dolphins. So just love that pick for Miami. It'll probably be him, A-Chain. I think Mostert's still there too in Miami. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, just excited to see what McDaniel will do with him. And he ran the 2nd fastest 40-yard dash out of all the running backs at the combine this year. And he also finished his last season there at Tennessee with a 7.4 yards per carry. So just really like Jalen Wright, and I think he's going to be an incredible football player here in the NFL.
Yeah, fantastic pick there. I'm actually going to stick with the Miami Dolphins, and my favorite day 3 pick was Muhammad Kamara. He fell all the way to the 5th round at pick 108. Now, I cannot believe that he fell as far as he did. He's going to be an impact rookie, especially on passing downs. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he led all rookies in sacks this year. But yeah, the fact that they got him as far down as they did, like I said, in the 5th round, I just thought that was a complete steal, and I really like the Miami Dolphins draft.
Well, moving on to our next topic. So now we're going to discuss our 3 favorite team drafts. So, Zach, do you want me to get started, or you want to get started on this one?
I'll let you go. Go right ahead.
All right, yeah. So my number 3 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just really liked what they did there overall in the draft. They took Troy Fontanu out of Washington, offensive tackle, who's probably going to play offensive guard there at the next level. And then they went in round 2 and got Zach Frazier out of West Virginia center, and he was, another guy that we thought could possibly go in the 1st round. So getting him there at pick 19 in the 2nd round is incredible value. Really like Zach Frazier. Then they just keep rolling, man. They got Roman Wilson in the 3rd round at pick number 20, a wide receiver out of Michigan. Roman had just an incredible year last year. He's pretty quick, pretty fast. Ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine. And this past season, I think he had like 20 touchdown catches, if I'm not mistaken, or something similar or up in that range.
Yep.
So just he had an incredible year with JJ McCarthy there at Michigan. Was probably one of his favorite targets there. And then also in the third round, we already talked about this. They took Peyton Wilson, the linebacker, North Carolina State. So just an overall really solid draft there for Pittsburgh. I think they got a whole lot better.
Yeah, dude, no doubt. And they're actually in my top 3, spoiler alert. So I'll be hitting on those guys in a little bit. But my number 3 favorite draft was the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought they just a fantastic draft. Quinion Mitchell, my number 1 corner, fell all the way to pick 22, so they were able to take him there. He's going to be a day 1 plug and play type of player. Then in the second round, Cooper DeJean was still on the board somehow, which makes no sense. I have no idea how he wasn't a first round pick. Like I said last podcast, I think he could be a Pro Bowl corner or he could be a Pro Bowl safety. And with the depth that the Philadelphia Eagles have at corner, I fully anticipate him being a safety for the Eagles and a damn good one, potentially a Pro Bowler, very early on in his career. And then just going down the board, Will Shipley, a running back from Clemson, I think is a really nice chess piece. He's a good receiving back out of the backfield and definitely a nice guy to have, behind Saquon Barkley. And then one of my favorite picks in the entire draft, in the 5th round, they got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which is just such a cool fit because, his father, Jeremiah Trotter, is a Philadelphia Eagles legend, and it's just cool that he's going to the same team that his dad played for and played damn well for a lot of years. So I thought that was really cool. And if you just look at what the Eagles have at linebacker, it is insane. They got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., like I just said, which I think you could argue that he's the best cover linebacker in this entire draft. So he's definitely going to be seeing the field quite a bit. As a rookie, they got that Nakobe Dean from Georgia. They signed Devin White. They went on and gave Bryce Huff a big contract from the New York Jets. So just looking at their roster, I mean, in my opinion, I think the Philadelphia Eagles have the best complete roster in the entire NFL. And with this draft class, I mean, the rich just get richer. So, and another one more pick before we move on here is in the 6th round, they drafted Johnny Wilson from Florida State, a receiver that I really like. He's 6'7", 230 pounds. So he's going to be a nice red zone target there for Jalen Hurts. So, just overall great draft by the Philadelphia Eagles.
And just going back on Roman Wilson real quick. So Roman Wilson had 12 touchdown catches last year. I was kind of thinking of Blake Corum there, who had 20 plus rushing touchdowns. So just wanted to correct that before I move on. But yeah, I like Roman Wilson a lot there in Pittsburgh. Moving on, my number 2 team is the Miami Dolphins. So just overall, really liked what they did. They went there in the 1st round. They took Chop Robinson, edge out of Penn State. We think he is going to be he's kind of a project, I would say a little bit, but he's definitely got some really nice traits. Very athletic edge defender. And then in the 2nd round, they got Patrick Paul to Houston, their offensive tackle, who we were pretty high on as well. So, yeah, 2 nice picks there. And then in the 4th round, like we talked about, they went and got Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, who was my number 1 running back in this class. And then the value that you just talked about, Muhammad Kamara, your surprise or your favorite pick there in day 3 out of Colorado State. So just adding studs to that Miami Dolphins roster. And then in the 6th round, they drafted a guy who I was really hoping that the Vikings would maybe get there later rounds. That was Malik Washington. I expect Malik Washington to be kind of like a gadget type wide receiver, and he'll be really fun to watch there in Miami to see how McDaniel uses him as well. And then Taj Washington out of USC, drafted him in the 7th round. He's got some nice traits and good speed as well. So, yeah, they're definitely adding to their roster. They already have a lot of speed on that offense, and they just keep adding to it.
Yep, good, very, very good choice. Dolphins had one heck of a draft, and like you said, that offense is so fast. Well, they actually got faster this offseason, so great choice. But my number 2 was the Washington Commanders. I just love what they did. They stayed put, and they took Jaden Daniels at 2. I thought him and Caleb were a tier of their own this draft, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The 2nd round, Johnny Newton fell to him. I still thought Johnny Newton should have been a 1st-round pick. I think he's that kind of defensive player, so getting a guy like that in the 2nd round, absolute grand slam pick for the Commanders there. And then they had 3 2nd-round picks. Then with the second one, they got Mike Sanistril, kind of a leader there for the Michigan Wolverines. Cornerback, he's smaller. He's only 5'9", but an absolute dog. I think it was Mel Kiper that said, he might be the pound for pound best player in this entire draft. So a guy that's willing to make tackles. You can line him up outside, inside, even at safety. But I think at this next level for the Commanders, he's probably going to be a nickel corner. Great pick there. With their last second-round pick, they picked Ben Sinnott, tight end from Kansas State. I think he's going to be a day one starter for him. Yeah, he was just so dang good. And the nice thing about him is he can block, and he's a good receiving back. They do have Zach Ertz, but I do anticipate Ben Sinnott seeing a lot of playing time there in Washington. Another guy that they got in the third round, Brandon Coleman from TCU, 6'6", 320 pounds. I think he's going to be their starting day one left tackle. He's going to be there protecting Jaden Daniels' blind spot, so that was a great pick. And then another third-round pick, a guy that I really, really liked. I was really hoping that somehow he was going to end up on the Vikings, maybe in the fourth round, but he did go in the third round, unfortunately, and that's Luke McCaffrey. I think he's going to be a fantastic pro. He's definitely going to be their slot receiver, probably going to be catching a ton of balls. But, when you have receivers like Scary Terry, Dotson, and now you got Luke McCaffrey working out a slot, I mean, that's just the weapons for Jaden Daniels is fantastic. And, just overall, I think they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starters there in the draft, and potentially more. Jordan McGee out of Temple, linebacker, he might be a starter there too in the fifth round because I really like him a lot. 6'1", 230 pounds with good speed. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, when you can get 6, 7, potentially 7 starters in one draft class, I mean, talk about crazy value there.
Yeah, that was a really nice draft for Washington. I thought about putting them in my top 3. They would definitely be my top 5, though. Philly would probably be 4. Washington would be 5 for me. So, yeah, very nice class, and excited to see those guys on Washington, especially Sanistril there. I like him a lot.
Oh, yeah. He's such a dog.
For sure. Oh, moving on to my number 1 team. So we already talked about them a little bit. This team's coming from the AFC West, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. So, yeah, we spoke on them already, getting Joe Alt there in the first round, pick number 5. Ladd McConkey in the second round, pick number 2. Junior Colson, linebacker out of Michigan, in the third round, pick number 5. Then Justin Ibagabe, Alabama, out of Alabama, defensive tackle there in round 4. And the list just keeps going, man. In round 5, they got Cam Hart, cornerback out of Notre Dame, who I really like too. And then in the 7th round, they got 2 guys that could potentially push to start right away. They got Brendan Rice, wide receiver out of USC, and then Cornelius Johnson, a wide receiver out of Michigan. So Cornelius Johnson would probably be maybe a 4 or a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. But I would imagine he'd see some snaps here on next season.
Yeah, and honestly, they probably should have been in my top 3 too. But like I said, I'm not going to put an AFC West team in there. But man, they had one heck of a draft. Jim Harbaugh kind of had a head up on people because he was in college last year and got to really study these guys and get up and close and personal with these guys. So he definitely took advantage of that and just had an A++ draft. So
I loved it too. He drafted. I was watching the video of when they drafted Colson. He calls him. He says, "Who's got it better than us?" And then he goes, "Nobody." That's his kind of thing. So he kept saying that to all the players there, and that's kind of like his little catchphrase.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I mean, he's going to be such a good linebacker for him too, Colson. But the Chargers had one heck of a draft, man, unfortunately, but they sure did. But my number 1 team, you already talked about them. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I absolutely love what they did. I think it was last podcast I said they have to find a way to revamp that entire offensive line, and that's exactly what they did in one draft. They got Troy Fontenot there with pick 20. He's obviously going to be a day 1 starter for them, probably going to be their starting left tackle if I had to guess. When they go and get Zach Frazier, he's for sure going to be a starter for them. Roman Wilson is going to be their slot receiver this year, with George Pickens on the outside. And then they also got Van Jefferson this offseason, so Roman Wilson in the slot. I mean, the one thing that Russell Wilson likes to do if he's going to be their quarterback is chuck that deep ball. So Roman Wilson is definitely really good at that. I already talked about Peyton Wilson. I mean, an absolute dog and a day 1 starter for him. The fact that he's going to be playing next to Patrick Queen is kind of scary for the NFL because both those guys can fly. Then, like I said before, I think Patrick Queen's a top 5 linebacker in the entire NFL. And then another guy that I really, really like there in the 4th round is Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. I think he's a day one plug-and player too. So they got 3 new starters on the offensive line, a starting receiver, and a starting linebacker. So, yeah, that entire offensive line is completely rebuilt, and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields got to be over the moon happy with the Pittsburgh Steelers draft.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, yeah, overall, very solid draft like we talked about, and all 3 of those teams that we both mentioned really got, really improved their rosters.
Yep, no doubt about it, man.
Well, moving on, before we get into the Timberwolves talk, and it's an exciting talk about the T-Wolves too.
Yes,
so
it is.
I just want to go back and kind of address, we talked about how we'd be talking about the offensive rookie of the year rankings and defensive rookie of the year rankings too. So yeah, just offensive rookie of the year, there's 5 guys on that list. So coming in at number 1, you got Caleb Williams. Coming in at number 2, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. Coming in at number 3, you have Jaden Daniels. Coming in at number 4, which is kind of surprised me. So maybe DraftKings Sportsbook thinks that he's going to be starting right away, and that is J.J. McCarthy. The Vikes actually came out today and said how Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback going into training camp. So J.J. McCarthy will definitely have to go in there and steal a job from him. And, like we talked about before, I would like them to keep J.J. McCarthy maybe on the bench for a little bit until he's absolutely ready. But if he goes in there and shows that he's ready right now, I get it. You gotta let him roll. And then number 5 was Malik Neighbors, wide receiver that the Giants drafted.
Yeah, and I can't argue with any of those. The 5 that you just announced or said. The J.J. McCarthy pick, I mean, honestly, it's really not too far-fetched. I really think that if he goes out there in the training camp and preseason, they probably will play him week 1. If I had to put money on it, I do think that he's going to be the week 1 starter. I just have this weird feeling that that's going to happen. And with those weapons that he has, yeah, TJ Hawkinson's not going to be there week 1, but, they still have, obviously, Justin Jefferson and Addison and Aaron Jones, another guy who's really good at catching the ball out of the backfield. So, yeah, I think J.J. McCarthy, he's definitely has even with, Jaden Daniels, like we just talked about, and Caleb Williams, I still think that J.J. McCarthy has the best supporting cast around him, especially when, you're talking about coaches and players. I just think overall, he has everything that you want. So I think he's, like I said, he should have been a day 2 pick. But I think a guy with, those weapons and stuff and KOC and Josh McCown, I think he's going to put up some good numbers as a rookie.
No doubt. We'll see what happens. So we'll move into the defensive rookie of the year. So I'm going to start at number 5 and make my way up on this list. So coming in at number 5 is Jared Verse, who was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. Number 4 is Quinion Mitchell, who was drafted by the Eagles, cornerback. And then number 3 is Leatu Latu, who was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. He's an edge defender or edge rusher. And then number 1, I must have skipped someone here. Let's see, 1, 2. So there's only 4 guys on this list, actually. So Jared Verse would be 4, Leatu Latu would be 3, or Quinion Mitchell would be 3, Leatu Latu would be number 2, and the number 1 is actually Dallas Turner. So they are very high on Turner, like we are as well. So yeah, super excited about that. Gonna see how he does here with the Vikings during his rookie campaign. And Zach, if you had to guess, do you think Dallas Turner will be, I think this too, but it'd probably be Greenard and then Turner starting, and then having Van Ginkel there as kind of like a rotational pass rusher?
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think that's exactly how it's going to be. I think, I think Greenyard's going to be playing opposite of Dallas Turner, and then Van Ginkel on third down will probably just, rotate in. But and then they also have guys like Jihad Ward and stuff that'll be a rotational piece too. But yeah, man, I've said this a million times this podcast, but it still blows my mind that they got him at 17. He's definitely the clear-cut number 1 defensive, rookie of the year candidate. There's no doubt about it. I think he's going to have double-digit sacks as a rookie. And if I had to guess, I think it's going to be up to him or Muhammad Kamara. I think he's going to be kind of a sleeper pick, but I think he's going to get close to double-digit sacks. But yeah, I think as a rookie, right off the gate, I think Dallas Turner is going to absolutely dominate for the Minnesota Vikings.
All right. Well, yeah, later on in the summer, we'll have to go out there and make our offensive rookie of the year predictions and all the other awards as well before the season starts.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm definitely looking forward to that for sure.
Well, before we dive into the Wolves here, I just want to touch base real quick on the Twins. So, Minnesota Twins are on a 7-game winning streak. They took care of those Chicago White Sox. Man, how bad are they, by the way? We actually have another series coming up for them that starts tonight. So, hopefully, we get some more W's here.
Yeah, the White Sox are just terrible. I think they're 6-22 or 23. So, yeah, man, they are absolutely terrible. Total. I mean, if you would have looked at their roster, 5-6 years ago, they were completely stacked, and it looked like, they were eventually going to win a World Series. And now they totally just depleted their entire roster. And yeah, now they're just, bottom feeders. And yeah, 6-22 or 23, whatever it is just hilarious.
No doubt. Yeah, so the Twins have crawled their way back to 14-13 on the year. They had that just pretty terrible starting the season off, so it's nice to have them above 500 now. In the last 2 games versus the Angels, they had 17 hits in both games, so the bats have come alive. And big news tonight, Correa is back from the injured list, so that's going to be a help as well.
Yep, that's huge. You got to get Correa back, got to get Royce Lewis back. But the 14-13 after that super slow start that they had, the Twins keep the pedal down, see what you can do. They're 4 games back from the Guardians for the lead of the AL Central. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's a big thing in baseball. Is health is everything. So hopefully Correa will stay healthy the rest of the year, and hopefully Royce Lewis isn't too far behind him.
All right, so this is the moment of the show that we all have been waiting for. And the first ever sweep by a professional sports team in Minnesota. I have my towel waving right now in the air as we speak. The Minnesota Timberwolves, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. I still can't believe they swept the Suns. I look like such an idiot because I thought that was going to be a terrible series.
Both.
Yeah, I mean,
we both thought they were going to get swept.
Yeah, I thought the Wolves were going to get swept, to be honest, because the Suns are so stacked.
Sure.
The way they played them in the regular season, the Suns kind of just kicked their ass. So, yeah, man, it was just the fact that what Anthony Edwards is doing and what the rest of the team is doing, especially defensively in the playoffs. I wasn't expecting this because the Timberwolves don't have many guys on their roster that have that playoff experience. So, but it doesn't matter. They're just dominating. They, yesterday, just talking about last night, Booker went for 49. They could not stop Devin Booker. Devin Booker was hitting everything, and Ann only had 9 points at half. But after halftime, Ann said, "All right, team, get on my back. We're going to do this thing." And honestly, that late in the third quarter and that fourth quarter, it looked like vintage Kobe. Like he totally took the game over. The game before, I think he had 36 or 37 points, and then last night he had 40. So the fact that he's 22 years old doing this is unbelievable. The fact that he's a part of the Minnesota Timberwolves is insane. But as long as you got, your defense playing the way they are, when you have a guy like Anthony Edwards doing what he's doing in the playoffs, I mean, you can go out there and beat anybody. So more than likely, their next series is going to be against the Denver Nuggets. They played them 4 times in the regular season, and they went 2-2. So as long as you can stop Jokic, as long as you can stop the Joker, which that's the main reason why you got Rudy Gobert, lock down that interior. So we'll see if Rudy can step up and slow down Jokic at all. But yeah, I think their chances, just outside looking in, are a lot better against the Denver Nuggets than it was against the Suns. So yeah, man, the fact that the Timberwolves advanced, the first time in 20 years since they won a playoff series. So this is massive. Hopefully all you Minnesota sports fans are watching all the games and supporting them because this is special.
No doubt about it. Just super exciting. And man, I just can't wait to see the next round here and what we can do versus the Nuggets. Obviously, it's not official yet, but, they're up 3-1 in the series. I think they're playing tonight versus the Lakers, so it should be wrapped up tonight, I'd have to imagine. Hopefully, though, the Lakers go in and win another game to kind of prolong this series a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. That's why I was so happy that the Lakers won that at least won one game because, the longer you can wear the Denver Nuggets out, the better. It's better for the Timberwolves, more rest. And both of his ankles are a little banged up and stuff, so the Timberwolves need that rest. And just real quick, I want to give a shout out to Karl-Anthony Towns because, the first couple games he was doing stupid fouls and getting in foul trouble and just kind of, not being the guy that he probably should be, especially in the playoffs. And last night, it was pretty much the Ant show and the Towns show. Everyone else kind of just laid an egg. Towns had 28 and 10 last night, and he was a huge, huge reason on why they won that game and ended up sweeping the Suns. So hopefully Towns can keep that momentum going, because as long as you got Towns performing like that, the defense balling out, they can beat anybody, and I mean anybody, in the rest of these playoffs, including the East. So we'll see what happens. But man, great time to be a Timberwolves fan.
No doubt, and KD had some nice words there for Ant too. He said that, I'll have to look it up here for a second, but he said how he was, his favorite player right now in the league to watch, and that he's just very impressed by Edwards this whole series. So big words from a superstar player in himself, Kevin Durant. And hey, it's gonna be fun watching those two play together this summer on the U.S. basketball Olympic team.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, just having a guy that's 22 years old and just taking over games the way he does, and the confidence that he has, and the smack talk that he has, and he's doing the DX suck it sign after they're beating the Suns. I mean, dude,
Oh my gosh.
he's the face of the NBA. If it's not now, it's going to be very soon. So it's crazy that he's a Minnesota Timberwolf. Hopefully they keep him here for a long time. But yeah, man, he's it. He's an absolute dog. And it was kind of cool.
Doubt.
Stephen A. Smith this morning was kind of talking about Anthony Edwards, and he said, we had Michael Jordan, and then after Michael Jordan, we had Kobe Bryant, and we didn't have anyone after Kobe Bryant, but now we got Anthony Edwards. We got that kind of dog and that kind of player. So it was pretty cool that, he's getting his praises all around the league from the players and the media. So yeah, just overall, still shocked by it, but couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, and hopefully a championship's coming here. And man, if they win a championship this season, I can't even put in the words how excited I'll be to finally see a championship in Minnesota by one of our professional sports teams.
Yeah, it's crazy. And 2-3 years ago, who would have thought that it would be by the Minnesota Timberwolves? The Timberwolves have been in the dumps forever. I mean, like I said, they haven't won a playoff series since 2002 or 2004, excuse me. So yeah, if it's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves that gets it done, my mind's going to be blown. But I hope it happens, because and one more thing before we get off here is Kevin Garnett. I know Kevin Garnett does not like Glenn Taylor. I know Glenn Taylor doesn't like Kevin Garnett. He refuses to retire his number, and they got this beef. But if Kevin Garnett shows up in the Target Center for one of these playoff games, that place is going to erupt. So Kevin Garnett, take one for the team. I know you don't like Glenn Taylor, but come on, show up. I know he loves Anthony Edwards. Come and support the Minnesota Timberwolves. Support Anthony Edwards, because him just being in the crowd is going to take the Timberwolves team and the Timberwolves fan to an entirely different level.
Well, next time we talk on here, maybe it'll be during the Denver Nuggets series. We'll see what's going to happen. But man, let's go Wolves. Let's keep it rolling.
Yep, let's go Wolves. And if you guys made it this far in the episode, thanks for listening. Hit those bell icons to get notified when new episodes drop. This offseason is going to be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll have some guests on. We'll see what happens. We'll be talking a lot of Timberwolves. We'll definitely be talking a lot of Raiders and Vikings. So, yeah, just make sure you hit those icons and get notified. But until then, just win, baby.
Straight cash, homie. Let's go Wolves. Thank you for listening to our episode. Be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and X at NapTime Sports Talk Podcast for content related to the pod. Thank you for the support.